Hollywood loves war heroes, but the deadliest fighters weren't wearing uniforms. They were civilians with fake IDs, stolen weapons, and nothing left to lose. These resistance movies showcase the underground warriors who fought fascism from the shadows, and some of these films got their creators blacklisted, banned, or worse. Army of Shadows, 1969. Jean-Pierre Melville didn't just make a resistance film, he lived it. This French masterpiece follows underground fighters as they execute collaborators, rescue captured comrades, and slowly watch their network crumble. Melville based it on his own experiences in the French resistance, and the authenticity is bone-chilling. The film opens with German jackboots marching down the Champs-Élysées and never lets up the tension. Lino Ventura plays Philippe Gerbier, a resistance leader who escapes Gestapo custody only to discover his network is compromised. Critics initially dismissed it as too cold and distant, but Melville was showing the real cost of underground warfare. No heroic speeches, no Hollywood romance, just the grinding paranoia of life under occupation. The movie bombed in France because audiences weren't ready to confront their wartime reality. It took decades before critics recognized it as maybe the greatest resistance film ever made. Criterion called it a masterpiece of moral complexity. The film's gray cinematography matches its moral landscape, where survival often means betraying friends. Melville died before seeing his vindication, but Army of Shadows now tops every serious war film list. The Battle of Algiers, 1966. Gillo Pontecorvo made a film so realistic that both revolutionaries and military academies use it as a training manual. This Italian-Algerian production documents the FLN's urban guerrilla campaign against French colonial rule, and it's shot like breaking news footage from hell. The movie was banned in France for 5 years because it showed French paratroopers using torture. Pentagon officials screened it during the Iraq War to study urban insurgency tactics. That's how accurate Pontecorvo made his fictional reconstruction of real events. He used actual FLN fighters as actors, including Saadi Yachef, who produced the film and had been a real bomb maker during the battle. The famous bombing sequence where FLN women plant explosives in cafes feels terrifyingly real because Pontecorvo studied actual police files. Critics called it the most powerful political film ever made. Pauline Kael said it was like watching history being written with blood. Venice Film Festival gave it the Golden Lion, but French authorities tried to block screenings worldwide. Even today, the film remains controversial for refusing to condemn or glorify either side. It just shows war as the ugly, necessary evil some people choose when democracy fails. Canal, to Hutchin Limanjou. Andrzej Wajda turned the Warsaw sewers into cinema's most claustrophobic nightmare. This Polish masterpiece follows resistance fighters retreating through the city's underground tunnels during the 1944 Warsaw Uprising, and it feels like being buried alive for 2 hours. Wajda survived the real uprising as a teenager, and his camera work makes you feel every suffocating moment. The rebels enter the sewers as proud fighters and emerge as broken shells, covered in filth and madness. Teresa Izewska plays a resistance courier who watches her comrades die one by one in the tunnels. The final shot of daylight through a sewer grate became one of cinema's most haunting images. Communist authorities initially approved the film because it showed Polish heroism, but they missed Wajda's real message about the futility of resistance. Critics at Cannes were stunned by its brutality and honesty. François Truffaut called it poetry written in mud and blood. The film launched the Polish film school movement and made Wajda an international sensation. Even today, Polish schools show Canal to teach students about their history. Wajda proved that resistance films could be both patriotic and deeply critical of the costs of war. Rome, Open City, 1945. Roberto Rossellini shot this masterpiece while Rome was still occupied, using real locations and actual resistance fighters as actors. The film follows a Catholic priest and communist resistance leader working together against the Nazis, and Rossellini filmed it with equipment stolen from fascist studios. Anna Magnani plays Pina, a pregnant woman shot down by German soldiers while chasing a truck carrying her arrested fiancé. Magnani improvised the scene, and her raw emotion became one of cinema's most powerful moments. Rossellini used leftover German film stock and whatever actors he could find. Many scenes were shot during actual air raids, giving the film an urgency no studio could replicate. The movie opened just months after liberation and shocked audiences with its documentary-style realism. American distributors wanted to cut the political content, but Rossellini refused. Critics called it the birth of Italian neorealism, and one of the first films to show resistance fighters as ordinary people rather than comic book heroes. The Vatican initially condemned it for showing a priest working with communists, but later praised its spiritual message. Rome, Open City, won the Palme d'Or and changed filmmaking forever by proving that truth could be more powerful than any Hollywood fantasy. The Seventh Cross, 1944. Fred Zinnemann adapted Anna Sager's novel into a gripping escape thriller starring Spencer Tracy as Georg Heisler, one of 7 concentration camp prisoners who attempt a daring breakout. The film was one of the first Hollywood productions to directly address Nazi atrocities while showing ordinary Germans who risked everything to help resistance fighters. Tracy delivers one of his most intense performances as Heisler, who must navigate through a Germany where any stranger could betray him to the Gestapo. The movie shows how resistance took many forms, from the innkeeper who provides false papers to the doctor who treats wounded fugitives. Zinnemann shot the film on MGM soundstages that convincingly recreated German towns and countryside. The film was a box office success, earning over $4 million and proving that American audiences were hungry for anti-Nazi stories. Critics praised Tracy's understated performance and Zinnemann's taut direction. The movie was banned in occupied Europe but secretly screened by resistance groups who used it for recruitment. The Seventh Cross won Academy Award nominations and established Zinnemann as a master of suspense cinema. The film proved that resistance stories could work as mainstream entertainment while delivering serious political messages about the cost of opposing fascism. This Land Is Mine, 1943. Jean Renoir directed Charles Laughton in this powerful drama about a timid schoolteacher who finds courage to resist Nazi occupation in a small French town. Laughton plays Albert Lorry, a mama's boy who transforms into an unlikely hero when the Germans execute his friend for resistance activities. The film was Renoir's contribution to the war effort after fleeing Nazi-occupied France. He created a fictional European town that represented all occupied territories, showing how ordinary people could choose collaboration or resistance. Laughton's performance captures the internal struggle of decent people forced to take sides. The movie's courtroom climax became one of cinema's greatest speeches about freedom and human dignity. RKO initially worried the film was too political, but it became a critical and commercial success. Critics praised Renoir's direction and Laughton's powerful performance. The movie was banned in Vichy, France, but secretly distributed by resistance networks. This Land Is Mine earned Academy Award nominations and inspired other Hollywood productions about European resistance. Renoir said he wanted to show American audiences that freedom required constant vigilance and personal sacrifice. The film remains one of the most eloquent statements about why people choose to resist tyranny even when resistance seems hopeless. Edge of Darkness, 1943. Louis Milestone created a rousing resistance epic starring Errol Flynn as a Norwegian fisherman who leads his village in an uprising against German occupiers. The film was based on real events in occupied Norway and became one of the most successful war films of 1943. Flynn trades his usual swashbuckling charm for grim determination as Gunnar Brøgge, who watches the Nazis destroy his peaceful fishing community. The movie shows how occupation transforms ordinary villagers into guerrilla fighters willing to die for freedom. Anne Sheridan plays his wife, torn between protecting their family and supporting the resistance. The film's climactic battle sequence features hundreds of extras in an elaborate recreation of a Norwegian village uprising. Warner Brothers promoted the film heavily as both entertainment and propaganda, earning over $5 million at the box office. Critics praised the spectacular action sequences and authentic Norwegian locations recreated on California soundstages. The movie was banned throughout Nazi-occupied Europe, but became a recruitment tool for Norwegian resistance groups operating from London. Edge of Darkness earned Academy Award nominations and proved that resistance films could be both commercially successful and politically effective. Milestone said he wanted to honor the courage of small nations fighting against overwhelming odds. The Cross of Lorraine, 1943. Tay Garnett directed this MGM production about French prisoners of war who escaped German captivity and joined the resistance. Gene Kelly stars in a dramatic role as a Parisian who learns to fight after witnessing Nazi brutality firsthand. The film follows a group of French soldiers captured during the 1940 invasion who endure harsh treatment in a German prison camp. Kelly's character initially collaborates to survive, but gradually transforms into a resistance leader after watching the Germans execute fellow prisoners. The movie shows how ordinary soldiers could become underground fighters when traditional military structures collapsed. MGM invested heavily in authentic sets and costumes, creating convincing recreations of French towns and German prison camps. The film earned solid box office returns and critical praise for its realistic portrayal of prison camp conditions. Critics noted Kelly's effective dramatic performance in a role far removed from his musical comedies. The Cross of Lorraine was banned in occupied France but distributed by Free French forces operating from North Africa. The movie proved that Hollywood could make serious war films without sacrificing entertainment value or box office appeal. Hangman Also Die, 1943. Fritz Lang and Bertolt Brecht collaborated on this noir-influenced thriller about the assassination of Reinhard Heydrich in Prague. The film stars Brian Donlevy as Dr. Svoboda, a Czech resistance fighter who kills the Nazi leader and must evade a massive manhunt. Lang brought his German expressionist techniques to this American production, creating a dark visual style that matched the story's themes of resistance and revenge. The movie shows how the assassination triggers brutal Nazi reprisals against Czech civilians, forcing the resistance to choose between protecting the assassin and saving innocent lives. Brecht's screenplay emphasizes collective resistance rather than individual heroism. United Artists released the film to strong box office performance and critical acclaim. Critics praised Lang's direction and the authentic portrayal of Nazi occupation methods. The movie was banned throughout occupied Europe, but became a morale booster for Czech resistance groups operating from London. Hangman Also Die earned Academy Award nominations and proved that serious filmmakers could make effective anti-Nazi propaganda. Lang said he wanted to show American audiences the reality of life under fascist occupation while honoring the memory of Czech patriots who died fighting for freedom. The Moon is Down, 1943. Irving Pichel adapted John Steinbeck's novel into a thoughtful drama about resistance in an unnamed occupied country. The film stars Cedric Hardwicke as Colonel Lancer, a German officer struggling to maintain control over increasingly hostile civilians. Steinbeck's story focuses on psychological warfare between occupiers and occupied, showing how civilian resistance gradually undermines military authority. The movie avoids graphic violence in favor of character studies that reveal how ordinary people find courage to resist tyranny. Lee J. Cobb plays Dr. Winter, the town's intellectual leader who inspires passive resistance through quiet dignity. 20th Century Fox promoted the film as a prestige production based on Steinbeck's best-selling novel. Critics praised the intelligent screenplay and nuanced performances that avoided propaganda cliches. The movie was banned in Nazi Germany but secretly distributed by resistance groups who appreciated its realistic portrayal of occupation psychology. The Moon is Down earned respect from both critics and audiences for its mature treatment of complex moral issues. Pichel said he wanted to show that resistance could be spiritual as well as physical, emphasizing the power of human dignity against oppression. The Seventh Victim, 1943. Mark Robson created a psychological thriller about a young woman searching for her missing sister in wartime New York. Kim Hunter stars as Mary Gibson, who discovers her sister has become involved with a mysterious cult that may be connected to Nazi agents operating in America. The film combines film noir elements with wartime paranoia, showing how fascist ideology could infiltrate American society through seemingly innocent organizations. Producer Val Lewton brought his signature atmospheric approach to this story of domestic resistance against hidden enemies. The movie suggests that the real battle against fascism was being fought in American cities as well as European battlefields. RKO released the film as part of Lewton's successful horror series, but critics recognized its serious political themes beneath the thriller surface. The movie earned modest box office returns, but impressed critics with its sophisticated treatment of wartime anxiety. The Seventh Victim influenced later films about domestic subversion and helped establish the paranoid thriller as a legitimate genre. Robson said he wanted to explore how ordinary Americans could resist fascist infiltration through vigilance and moral courage. The Stranger, 1946. Orson Welles directed and starred in this film noir about a Nazi war criminal hiding in a small Connecticut town. Edward G. Robinson plays the federal agent hunting Franz Kindler, a former concentration camp commander who has assumed a new identity as a respected college professor. Welles created a chilling portrait of how Nazi ideology could survive in post-war America through individuals who escaped justice. The film shows how communities could unknowingly harbor war criminals while federal agents work to track down fugitives. Loretta Young plays the professor's wife, who must confront the terrible truth about her husband's past. RKO promoted the film as both entertainment and public service, warning audiences about Nazi fugitives operating in America. Critics praised Welles's direction and the film's timely message about post-war justice. The Stranger earned solid box office returns and Academy Award nominations. The movie was distributed internationally as part of America's denazification efforts. Welles said he wanted to show that the fight against fascism continued even after military victory, requiring constant vigilance against those who escaped punishment for their crimes. The Mask of Demetrios, 1944. John Negulesco directed this espionage thriller starring Sidney Greenstreet and Peter Lorre as they investigate a mysterious criminal whose activities span multiple countries. The film explores the international networks that resistance fighters used to combat fascist agents throughout Europe. Zachary Scott plays Demetrios Makropoulos, a shadowy figure whose criminal activities may be connected to resistance operations against German intelligence networks. The movie shows how legitimate businesses and criminal organizations both served as covers for anti-Nazi activities. Greenstreet and Laura's chemistry drives the investigation through a complex web of European intrigue. Warner Brothers promoted the film as sophisticated entertainment for adult audiences. Critics praised the intelligent screenplay and the lead performances that elevated the material above typical spy movie cliches. The Mask of Demetrios earned respectable box office returns and critical acclaim. The movie influenced later spy films by showing how resistance work often resembled criminal activity to outside observers. Negulesco said he wanted to explore the moral ambiguity of intelligence work, where heroes and villains were often indistinguishable. Background to Danger, 1943. Raoul Walsh directed George Raft in this espionage thriller about an American agent working with Turkish resistance fighters to prevent German agents from bringing Turkey into the war on the Axis side. Raft plays Joe Barton, an American operative who must stop Nazi agents from assassinating a Turkish leader and blaming it on the Soviets. The film shows how resistance work often involved preventing Axis operations rather than conducting dramatic sabotage missions. Brenda Marshall plays a German agent who may be working as a double agent for the Allies. Warner Brothers released the film as part of their wartime thriller series, earning modest box office returns and positive reviews. Critics praised the authentic Turkish locations recreated on studio soundstages and the complex plot that avoided simple good versus evil characterizations. Background to Danger was distributed internationally as part of America's cultural diplomacy efforts. Walsh said he wanted to show how resistance fighters operated in neutral countries where the stakes were preventing new wars rather than winning existing ones. Hotel Berlin, 1945. Peter Godfrey directed this ensemble drama set in a Berlin hotel during the final days of Nazi Germany. The film shows how ordinary Germans began to resist or abandon the Nazi regime as defeat became inevitable. The movie features multiple storylines involving hotel guests and staff who represent different aspects of German society under collapse. Helmut Dantine plays a resistance fighter hiding in the hotel while Gestapo agents search for him. Andrea King plays a nightclub singer who helps the Underground Railroad smuggle people out of Germany. The film explores how resistance movements grew stronger as Nazi authority weakened. Warner Brothers promoted the film as a prestige production featuring an all-star cast. Critics praised the authentic portrayal of Berlin under siege and the complex characterizations that avoided stereotypes. Hotel Berlin earned solid box office returns and critical recognition. The movie was banned in occupied Germany, but later became part of denazification film programs. Godfrey said he wanted to show how resistance could emerge even within the heart of Nazi Germany when people finally understood the true nature of the regime they had supported. They Were Expendable, 1945. John Ford created an elegiac tribute to PT boat crews in the Philippines, showing how American military units became resistance fighters after the fall of Bataan. Robert Montgomery and John Wayne star as naval officers who must adapt from conventional warfare to guerrilla operations. The film follows PT Boat Squadron 3 as they conduct hit-and-run attacks against Japanese forces in the Philippines. Ford shows how regular military personnel had to learn resistance tactics when conventional forces proved inadequate. The movie emphasizes sacrifice and duty while acknowledging that many resistance operations ended in death or capture rather than heroic victory. MGM released the film as a major prestige production, with Ford's reputation guaranteeing critical attention. Critics praised the authentic naval sequences and Ford's understated direction that avoided propaganda cliches. They Were Expendable earned strong box office returns and Academy Award nominations. The movie influenced later war films by showing resistance as a military necessity rather than an idealistic choice. Ford said he wanted to honor the memory of servicemen who died in hopeless situations while doing their duty to the end. Ministry of Fear, 1944. Fritz Lang adapted Graham Greene's novel into a paranoid thriller starring Ray Milland as Stephen Neal, a man released from a mental institution who stumbles into a Nazi spy ring operating in wartime London. The film creates a nightmarish vision of England where German agents infiltrate charitable organizations and social clubs. Milland's character must navigate a world where anyone could be an enemy agent while trying to prevent a Nazi assassination plot. Marjorie Reynolds plays a woman whose loyalties remain ambiguous until the climactic revelation. Paramount released the film as a prestige production featuring Lang's distinctive visual style. Critics praised the atmospheric direction and Milland's performance as an everyman caught in extraordinary circumstances. Ministry of Fear earned solid box office returns and critical acclaim. The movie influenced later paranoid thrillers by showing how resistance work often meant ordinary people fighting hidden enemies within their own society. Lang said he wanted to explore how fascism could corrupt any institution or relationship through fear and suspicion. Watch on the Rhine, 1943. Hermann Schumlin adapted Lillian Hellman's play into a powerful drama starring Paul Lukas as Kurt Muller, a German resistance fighter who brings his American wife and children back to Washington, D.C. while fleeing Nazi agents. Lucas delivers a compelling performance as a man forced to choose between family safety and continuing his fight against fascism. The film shows how resistance work affected entire families, not just individual fighters. Bette Davis plays his wife, who must decide whether to support her husband's dangerous mission or protect their children. Warner Brothers promoted the film as an important artistic statement about anti-fascist resistance. Critics praised Lucas's performance and Hellman's intelligent screenplay that avoided propaganda cliches. Watch on the Rhine earned multiple Academy Award nominations, including Best Picture. The movie was banned in Nazi Germany, but became a recruitment tool for American resistance supporters. Schumlin said he wanted to show that resistance against fascism was a moral imperative that transcended national boundaries. Notorious, 1946. Alfred Hitchcock created a sophisticated espionage thriller starring Cary Grant as a federal agent who recruits Ingrid Bergman to infiltrate a Nazi spy ring in post-war Brazil. The film explores the psychological costs of resistance work on both agents and their targets. Bergman plays Alicia Huberman, the daughter of a convicted Nazi who agrees to seduce Claude Rains' character to gather intelligence about uranium smuggling operations. The movie shows how resistance work often required morally compromising choices that damaged personal relationships. Grant's character must balance professional duty with genuine feelings for his female agent. RKO promoted the film as a prestige production featuring Hitchcock's established stars. Critics praised the sophisticated screenplay and the chemistry between Grant and Bergman. Notorious earned strong box office returns and critical acclaim. The movie influenced later spy films by emphasizing psychological complexity over action sequences. Hitchcock said he wanted to explore how resistance work could corrupt decent people while serving necessary political goals. 5 Graves to Cairo, 1943. Billy Wilder directed this desert warfare thriller starring Francho Tone as Corporal John Bramble, a British soldier who poses as a hotel worker to gather intelligence about Rommel's Afrika Korps operations. The film shows how resistance work often involved gathering information rather than conducting dramatic sabotage operations. Tone's character must maintain his cover while staying in the same hotel as Rommel himself. Anne Baxter plays a French maid who helps the British agent while hiding her own anti-Nazi activities. Paramount released the film as a major production featuring Wilder's sophisticated direction. Critics praised the intelligent screenplay and authentic desert warfare atmosphere created on studio soundstages. 5 Graves to Cairo earned strong box office returns and Academy Award nominations. The movie was distributed internationally as part of Allied propaganda efforts. Wilder said he wanted to show how ordinary people could serve the resistance cause through intelligence gathering and small acts of sabotage that seemed insignificant but proved crucial to military operations. The Hitler Gang, 1944. John Farrow created a biographical drama that traced the rise of Nazi leadership from their early days through their seizure of power in Germany. The film shows how ordinary Germans initially resisted Nazi ideology before succumbing to propaganda and intimidation. The movie features multiple actors portraying Hitler, Himmler, Goebbels, and other Nazi leaders as they developed their criminal organization. Farrow emphasizes how resistance to Nazism existed within Germany, but was systematically crushed through violence and manipulation. The film serves as both historical education and warning about how democratic societies could be subverted by fascist movements. Paramount promoted the film as an important public service that educated audiences about Nazi methods. Critics praised the authentic recreation of historical events and the serious treatment of complex political themes. The Hitler Gang earned solid box office returns and critical recognition. The movie was banned in occupied Europe, but later became part of denazification educational programs. Farrow said he wanted to show American audiences how fascism could destroy any society that failed to recognize and resist its early warning signs. Which resistance film hits hardest? The brutal realism of Army of Shadows or the impossible survival story of the Seventh Cross? Drop your pick in the comments and tell us which overlooked resistance story deserves a modern remake. Here's the real question that'll spark debate. Were resistance fighters heroes who saved civilization, or were they terrorists whose actions got innocent civilians killed in Nazi reprisals? Your answer says everything about how you view war itself.